run quickly through the pictures to remind you what they were. And then when finished I will then go through them again with the notes and tell you which images were first, second and third. We'll now run through the images again, in some cases including comments from the authors on what they did to achieve the final image. Boom. By Peter. I used some battery-powered colored lights on a black card. Reduced the lighting as much as possible by pulling the blind and used ICM intentional camera movement. Took 50-odd photos and the patterns in this one, although more random than some, had a certain energy to them. It was processed in Lightroom in the normal way and given a white border in Photoshop. Convex or concave by Debbie. Basically experimented with all the blend modes in Photoshop. I liked quite a few of them, but chose this one in the end. Craft from 1000 Feet by John. Crystal Bowl by Alan. Made a 3 red-blue-yellow segment print. Placed under crystal bowl of water. Camera on tripod, multi-shots while dropping water making bubbles. Photoshop made right size canvas. Divided into selected one square. Copied master and pasted into. Filled rest of page to make symmetrical pattern. Then filter distort sphere eyes. Dandelion Seed by Phil. Fragrant Patterns by Steve. Taken using 56mm Sigma lens on Canon M6 Mk2. 1/4 of a second at f11. Processed in Affinity Photo Develop Persona -20% contrast, -100% clarity, 50% saturation, 100% refinement, plus a big of curves for more contrast. Following development into Photo Persona Unsharp Mask with blend mode luminosity at 50% opacity, and a bit of spot removal. Grass Paths by Alan. Wanted to take more and have more options, but my back has gone, so here is the best of my pattern photos from the newly sown fields. Cropped and adjusted the coloring, cloned a few bits of grass to fill in some bold spots and hid a yellow footpath sign, in case you were wondering what I've done to it, smiley face. Kaleidoscopic by Isabel. I took a photo of some flowers in the garden and used the twirl filter in Photoshop. First use filter pixelate and then filter blur and then filter distort whirl. I like doing crazy photos. Odd One Out by Margaret. I spilled the eggs one day and then had an idea to create a pattern from them. This is the result. At first I tried a light background, then thought about this dark background, just a black mount board, and liked it best. All I've done is increased the exposure, added some vibrance, and turned down the blacks. I thought this was enough, then decided to change one peg to make Odd One Out. I enjoy having a go at these, it's keeping my interest in photography going with a bit of fun added. Many thanks. Patterns Across the Ceiling by John Smith. This was taken in the dining room where the light fitting throws out these shadows across the ceiling. It was taken in daylight with the window blinds closed. I mounted the tripod on the dining table and the camera pointing at the ceiling. I used f7.1 at 1/30th of a second and ISO of 250. In Lightroom I did a little cropping and minor adjustments to highlights and shadows. Patterns in the Landscape by Steve. The image was taken on my daily walk along the footpaths in the fields around Barwell. Many farms in the area have just ploughed and planted their fields. I went out early morning to capture the side lighting on the furrows. Taken on a Canon R with 24-105 RF lens at 37mm, f/11 and 1/60th seconds. Polka Dot Madness by Julie. Polarizing Patterns Exposed, PPE, by John. I had to lay my computer monitor flat and show a white screen. On that I put the PPE glasses and stood a polarizing filter on edge in front of them. The patterns could be seen easily enough, but the filter kept rolling and falling over. It was all in one image, but I had to take a lot to get a usable one. The name uses the initials PPE and describes the process. Ray of Light by Paul. What I did for this image is as follows. I came up with this idea when I saw a ray of light come through the curtains in my bedroom and lit up part of the wardrobe. However, because it didn't fall exactly where I wanted, I knew I had to set up the shot using a flash. So with my camera on a tripod I set up a speedlight to shine downwards onto the area with the patterns. In order to get the narrow ray of light I cut a slit out of a piece of cardboard and held this in position using another tripod. I took quite a few shots, adjusting the position of the slit to achieve the desired effect. I then processed the image in Lightroom, lowering the blacks and shadows and lifting the whites. I added a gradient filter from the left to reduce the brightness closest to the light source, then slightly increased clarity before converting to black and white, even though it was pretty much monochrome anyway. Spannering by Ken. Ken photographed a spanner, duplicated it lots of times and created a little planet by going to Filter Distort Polar Coordinates. Stripes by Gary. The stripes were on a spare toilet seat. And the wife bought a glass sphere. So I used this to distort the pattern. Unsafe Building by Ian. Preview of the 37th Street images. With background music by Peter Lawrence.